Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today we have one more presenter, distinguished guest, and by the way, a distinguished presenter from our own ranks and files, UIMF alumnus, Chris Jensen. And I would give the chance for Janessa to introduce our guest here, and then first I need to with everything protection out the students time and then
Okay, so Christian was born in Alberta, Canada, but spent most of his life in the United States. California was his childhood home, but he also spent time living in various parts of Utah and Ohio. He attended Pleasant Grove High School, where he graduated in 2011. Following high school, he served a 2-year mission in Honduras. While in Honduras, Christian became fluent in Spanish as well as served the local people. He met his wife, Capriya, shortly after coming home, and they were married in 2016. In his undergrad, Christian majored in political science while serving as the president of the Foreign Affairs Club, president of the UIMF, and vice president of the History Club. Christian is focused on promoting positivity to help others and to make the world a better place. He joined the Rural Water Association of Utah team in August of 2018 and is currently the manager of public relations, marketing, and cybersecurity. Mr. Christian Jensen.
Kind of weird getting an introduction like that. I'm usually used to doing that for other people. So thank you for doing that. We're good. Okay, so as I was kind of putting this together, I was looking at my experience in my undergrad, and like in the shoes that you guys are in right now, and trying to see like what maybe you could take from this that isn't just me saying, oh, look at all these cool things I did. Because there's lots of really cool experiences that you've probably already done so far, but that you're going to do as well. And there's a really good opportunity. I'm so glad you guys are here, proving that the student engaged learning model is effective. So when I found the Utah International Mountain Forum, I had just started school. I had been back for my mission for about a year. And I decided that I was going to be an art major before. I really liked art, still do. It's one of my favorite things. But when I spent time out and about, I realized I really enjoyed helping people and connecting with people in different ways. And so I switched my major to political science, hoping to pursue something maybe in government, something where I could give back and help some people. That led me eventually into one of Bach's classes, and I took a bunch that he had. Some people call him Beck, I always call him Bach, but and I was at a time where I felt like I need to do something. I was taking classes, and it was great, and I was learning a lot, but you know, I felt like I needed to try something new. This just so happened to be in 2015. And I was in one of Bach's classes, and there was a sheet going around to sign up for the Women of the Mountains conference. I had no idea what that was, but it was volunteering for something. And so I was like, well, I'll just try this and maybe it'll be a cool experience. And Bach talked it up. He's really good at talking things up, got me excited for it. And so I just jumped right in. What that led to was me being kind of a glorified chauffeur. That's basically all I did for the whole thing. But I picked up Unita Kopjanski, an ambassador from Indonesia. I was really nervous because I had this crappy little Mitsubishi Montero that was barely running, but she was super nice and wasn't bothered by it at all. And so I drove her around, make sure she got to her meetings so she was able to present. And it was a really cool experience. It was engaging with someone who's from the other side of the world. We just talked about, you know, everyday stuff, like what she was interested in, why, you know, the Women of the Mountains Conference was important to her, and what she wanted to kind of, that message she wanted to convey and spread to the world. But that kind of gave me a taste of like, this is kind of cool, this is fun. And, you know, Bach gave me recognition for saying that I helped in this, and, you know, everyone that was a part of it, they're a big part of it. And I felt like, you know, I was just a chauffeur, so I didn't really contribute. And so I kind of discounted that a little bit and kind of went on my way. But I realized later that every little bit is important, and just jumping in and getting started is like the biggest thing. if I hadn't have signed up for that sheet and I just volunteered for anything. It was just picking her up. But that led into so many opportunities that we'll kind of go through today. And hopefully that can kind of like, you're here, but any volunteering opportunity that comes up, hopefully you can jump in, try something out, even if it makes you uncomfortable, it's worth just going for. So this, fast forward a few months, that was in October of 2015, now into 2016. I had the opportunity to, I started jumping into different clubs. I joined the history club and became the president. Not that this was special or anyway, no one wanted to do it. So I was like, what the heck, I'll try it. The Foreign Affairs Club, same thing. No one wanted to be in leadership. So I was like, okay, I'll just try it and we'll just see what happens. The opportunities there, it was interesting because they were little. I was participating in people coming to speak, and I would show up and help with little logistical things, maybe give some introductions, little things like that. It didn't seem like much, but I was learning valuable skills that helped me in my job today. And then fast forward to the Rotary International Roundtable, I had the opportunity to lead logistics. And some of you may know, but some of you may not know, when you jump in and you do an event, there's a lot to it that you don't see. And you kind of take for granted. Someone shows up, they talk a little bit, maybe they pass some stuff out, whatever. Doesn't seem like a big deal. But behind the scenes, there's audio-visual issues. You got to make sure everything's set up. Where logistically, where is the speaker going to be? How's he going to get there? Are there flyers or printouts? In this case, you've got a live stream going. Is that all set up and ready to go? There's a lot of little things, and having a team that is willing to jump in as well and take advantage and pull their part goes a long way. So one of my buddies, Moonbot, who's just to the right of me in this photo, we collaborated a lot of different events, a lot of write-ups, and going back and forth with Bach as well. This opportunity in particular, I felt a little bit frustrated going into this because I thought, this would be pretty simple, and I kind of played it a little bit too lax. And Bach was hammering me about, hey, you got to get these printouts going. You got to talk to these people. And I was like, well, I'll do it. But it's like, you got to set up this poster. This has got to be there at this time. It just didn't seem like a big deal. But once it all started to come together and we had to kind of patch things on the fly, the behind the scenes, everyone looked at this and saw it was a success. But I was sweating bullets trying to get that together, and it all worked. But I could have avoided that if I would have taken some steps before. The things that Bach had already said, plan this stuff out, take care of all the little logistical issues. It'll pay off if you just spend that time. And yeah, I learned a lot about how that event runs, kind of scrambling around, making sure that speakers had what they needed, and everything would run smoothly. Fast forward just a little bit to the International Mountain Day. I had an opportunity to actually host the event. And one thing that I really appreciate about being in the UIMF and being the president of the UIMF was how each event was different. I didn't feel like I was stuck in one role per se. Like I thought, okay, chauffeur, I can do this. And then it was like, okay, here's this next thing. You have no idea how to do this, but jump into this, try it out. And then you get good at this, and then we'll shift to something else completely different. So it was a little bit, I like being comfortable and doing the things that are comfortable. And so that was very uncomfortable, but it helped me learn so much in such a short period of time. And in this event, I was actually hosting. So I wasn't taking care of logistical issues. I was kind of running that and making sure the people that were pulling logistics were doing their part, making sure everyone came together and just kind of overseeing everything. And at first, I would say that was tough to kind of step back a little bit and trust my team to take care of their parts and just kind of oversee. It was very difficult. And that's something for me, I always try and go back to, like, I want to just do it myself. It's just easier to do it yourself, but it works so much better as a team. And there's ideas that teams bring together that you just can't get on your own. The ideas that you can bounce off of people that you need their help. And it may be frustrating, maybe like 1 a.m. and you're bouncing on paper back to Bob, and then bouncing it back to one of your colleagues. It's annoying a little bit, but the success is in those little details. Okay, and then we had, fast forward to 2017, visitor Ambassador Kamau. This I had a more different role than just the hosting job. So I had to pick up the gift for the ambassador. I came, I did a little introduction. I was kind of in the shadows at this point, just kind of letting everyone else play their part and do their role. I realized that like finding a gift for somebody was really hard. Bach was like, oh, you know, get something that represents UVU. And I was like, okay, that seems pretty easy. And then I was like, a pen or a coin or like a shirt. I don't know what you give these people. I think we settled, I think it was a picture. We settled on like a coin and a pen. It worked out and he was grateful. I mean, he was just grateful to be there and he was a super nice guy. But again, like those little details, didn't know about, learned that along the way. Okay, so for me, the Commission on the Status of Women is the highlight of everything that I've done in my undergrad. I had around this time, I joined Model UN, and so we had an opportunity. Again, I wasn't like a public speaker, that's not like my thing. Very much prefer just be an introvert and just do my thing. I can do it, but it just makes me uncomfortable sometimes. And I felt like jumping into Model UN, that would kind of maybe break me out of my comfort zone a little bit more and I can learn some more skills. So that opportunity had to go to San Francisco and we competed as a school against other schools. And that same year we did the Commission on Status of Women. We went out to New York. And it was a mind-blowing experience, mostly because up to this point, everything that I had been learning in the other events and in class was like, okay, do this assignment. This is important. And I was like, okay, Bach, I get it. Some of these things, logistically, I see how that works. But all of this was really prepping me for that interaction. Do I know what I'm about? Do I know what we talk about in the UIMF? Is that something that I really know? And you don't know that until you go stand in front of somebody and they're like, hey, what are you all about? I'm like, well, they've got like 2 minutes and I got to be convincing and honest and connect with somebody. It's like serious pressure, but you can figure it out. And you know, it's better if you have that prepped in advance. But I tend to, in my past, just kind of go with it and try something and kind of learn from stumbling in those mistakes. This is like the squad. We were super tight. Tony was the previous president, and he was awesome. He's like kind of stoic, but when you talk to him, he's like really kind and like easygoing. But he was a really good mentor. Like he kind of sat in the back and said, okay, I've done this before. There's a lot of cool stuff you can learn from doing this. If you need some tips or advice, I'll help you out. If there's like talking points that we needed to edit, or you know, we're planning the next day of which ambassador we're going to go visit, I could bounce that off him and be like, okay, you know, this is how you should do it. Or if I was really frustrated with Bob because he was just all over me about punctuality and getting my stuff done, and I'd be like, I'd go vent to Tony and be like, I can't do this. And he'd be like, just take a breath. It's gonna work. It's all good. He seems like stern and it may feel like he's mean, but he's helping you learn something that you probably didn't think of before. And so I tried to change my perspective of what I was learning and how I was learning it. And in this event in particular, it was so cool actually going to the UN and being in New York. It kind of felt like a full circle moment where I was like, this is the kind of thing I want to do. I want to interact with people and try and make a difference any way I can. And like I mentioned earlier, kind of that working as a team aspect, we all contributed something that was unique and different. And I felt like that we worked really well together. And we did rely on each other to here, you do your part. You know, Mooncbot was always posting stuff on the website. And so we had to make sure we had articles and stuff ready to go with pictures. And even then at this time, I felt like, you know, posting the pictures and writing the write-up for the next day was like, who's reading this? Like, is this impactful? I don't know. Like, I just want to go meet these people and do this stuff. But it does make a difference. And even if it's not in the way that you think, like it's not going to change the world doing that write-up, posting that picture. But you also do learn skills there where you're learning, this is how it works. In the beginning of this kind of school journey for me, I was kind of at odds with self-promotion. Like it's not something I wanted to do, and I really, really hated it. And Bach was like, well, it's not about being egotistical about showing how amazing you are and how much better you are than other people. But people don't know you exist. People don't know that you have unique or different ideas, that you can contribute and actually make a difference. They don't know that. And really the only way to do that is to get in front of these people and say, hey, this is a thought I had, or, you know, this is something that's really important to my club and I feel like it'll make a difference. That 2-minute spiel that you have when you just talk to an ambassador or someone that you view as important makes a big difference in that small little connection and how they see you and how you can share that message. And even like fast forwarding to today, being here, I always kind of assumed that like I'd be on my deathbed before I got invited back to speak at UVU, and I'd be like, I'm like old and retired, and that was the end. But when Bach asked me, I thought, okay, you know, what can I share of how did this make a difference for me and set me on the path that I'm on right now? Here's a couple more pictures of like actual behind the scenes when we were visiting with the ambassador of Hungary and Kenya. The ambassador to Kenya, that was really, really quick. We had some scheduling conflicts and we couldn't visit everyone. And so we knew that he was going to be out of a room and he had like 3-minute window. And that's why I say like that 2-minute thing is really important. And so we got the stress ball ready. We had a little packet. And we're just waiting for him to show up and like, hey, got a couple things we want to say about UIMF and why this matters. And so that was a cool experience, a little bit under pressure. And we did have a lot of great opportunities to meet ambassadors, and we exchanged gifts. It was a really cool experience, something I'll never forget. So kind of looking at today where I am, I didn't mean to kind of jump through all that really quickly, and I'll ask if anyone's got any questions about kind of stuff we did. I kind of wanted to emphasize how like bringing this bigger picture together, what that looks like, the little things that you guys are doing. So after I graduated, I got a congressional internship for Mia Love, and it was great. I was doing a lot of the stuff that I had learned from Bach, you know, doing write-ups, connecting with people. Wasn't anything special or important, but it felt good that I was connecting with constituents and like doing my little part to help someone understand government and connect them with their congresswoman. From that point, it was a little bit scary for me because to get that internship, I had a full-time job. Throughout my undergrad, I worked full-time and I went to school full-time. And I was a warehouse manager. So it wasn't anything to do with my career or anything like that. But I was married. I had this full-time job and I needed to be able to provide, take care of myself and contribute where I could with my wife. And so I had to leave that and take a leap and do something new. So I jumped into that congressional internship knowing that at the end of that period, I would be jobless and I'd have to kind of start from scratch and see where I was going, which scares me because like I mentioned before, I really like to be comfortable, like be in a job that's steady and, you know, I know what to expect month to month. But by the time I got to the end of that congressional internship, there was someone that I met there that was friends with my wife, like in grade school, but she also went through that congressional internship. And she mentioned the Rural Water Association of Utah. You probably have never heard of it. I hadn't up until that point. But basically, Rural Water is an association, it's a nonprofit, and what we do is train water and wastewater operators throughout the state of Utah. So all the water that you drink, making sure that it's safe and clean, we're the people that teach them how to maintain the water. We get hired by the state and the federal government to provide that service. And it's really interesting. There's a lot of things that I learned about water that you just kind of take for granted, but it felt kind of in that same realm of like sustainable mountain development. We're talking about Utah and kind of the unique environmental issues within Utah and on a global scale. And this was like my opportunity to just on a smaller scale, jump in and contribute directly to the place where I love to live. This last week, we actually have an annual like big conference in St. George and a fall conference up in Layton. So we've got a week where it's one of the biggest water events in the country. Bigger than actually, there's a national association that is kind of over all 50 states. It's bigger than their event as well. Utah is just very unique in that way. I know Fox talked about kind of like the go get it attitude and working together and making something different. There's a lot of ways you can look at it, but that's kind of the way I see it. There's a lot of people that are different from different places, and we come together and we have this like-minded mentality of working hard and trying to do something to make a difference. In this event, we also hold a water taste test, so that we judge water throughout the state and then determine who has the best tasting water in Utah. They had a little blurb about it in KSL and some St. George news. But it's one of those things that I learned from Buck and being in clubs that, you know, little write-ups, what does a press release look like and who do I contact? In reality, my title today is public relations, marketing, and cybersecurity. So everything that I was doing in the clubs and at school was prepping me to do something in public relations, that one-on-one connection. And it's something that I really love. The other thing that was a little bit different jumping into this line of work is it's not like it's a nonprofit. It's not like a traditional business. So we don't have a real product that we're trying to sell and push on people. And that was something that was really important to me. I didn't want to have to sell something that I didn't believe in. And I don't have to do that. Any of the marketing that we do, I can be open, honest, and transparent, say, this is what we're charging. This is why we want you to go to this event. And it feels good knowing that I don't have to be crafty or lie about, you know, what we do. And that was one of those things that I mentioned a little earlier that I just was frustrated with coming into political science, was I didn't want to be self-serving and talk all about me all the time. Which is why, I mean, I've got limited photos because usually I'm the guy taking the picture. But yeah. So within this adventure that I'm on right now, there's been opportunities to meet Senate leaders, congressional representatives, and also tons of figures. Like those are the big ones that everyone sees and knows. Like this one was with Orrin Hatch before he passed away. And that stuff's great, but the real work that we get done happens when we meet with the leaders of the different bureaucracies within the state and the federal government. People that no one knows, but they're in charge of water and wastewater in Utah. And that connection that we have working together, making sure that messaging goes out that's correct, and that we can provide the best service. So on the right over there, this is kind of what our classes look like. So when we have these big events, this one in particular is a math class. So they're learning water and wastewater math. Probably didn't know that there was a lot of math involved in water, and most of the people that get into it don't. But you're dealing with chemicals and bacteria, and you need to know safe levels of not just bacteria, but anything that could be in the water. So they're constantly needing to know math on the fly and figure that sort of thing out. So today, I'm currently in the MBA program at the University of Utah. I was looking at, again, this is another point where I felt like I'm feeling comfortable. Like I get my job, everything's working out okay, but there's got to be something I can do to kind of shake it up and try something new. I've always hated business. Again, like I mentioned before, to me, I just saw business as like this shady, pushing product before people kind of a mentality. And I go back to what I learned in the Utah International Mountain Forum. Again, that it's not about, you can do it in your way. You can do it in your unique way. You don't have to sell things that you don't believe in or do things that you don't want to do. And I've stuck to that. That's something that I want to keep doing. And this is my wife in the middle, Capriya. Then I've got two kids, Olivia over on the right and Christian. He's the sixth, I'm the fifth. And they're awesome. They're everything to me. Okay, so this is kind of where I wanted to hit on, you know, the whole experience and kind of the key takeaways that I had. And hopefully some of the stories and stuff is nice, but you can take away what I've learned. So first of all, just jumping in and starting. I feel like this applies to everything, but you don't know how something's gonna turn out unless you just try it. You gotta jump in. For me, that was starting with volunteer work, and if you haven't done anything like that, I'm sure you have so far, keep doing it. The little things, even if it's just logistical, even if it's just, you know, I don't know, creating and printing posters, stuff like that. It does make a difference. And I'd say even the job that I have today, I do a lot of graphic design, which I started in art, and nonprofits are kind of weird that way because it's there's not a ton of money that goes in to pay staff. So most of it is like people have a lot of responsibilities, which is weird. We see my titles, public relations and marketing and cybersecurity. So I work, I like tech, and so that kind of got me to that. But I work with Department of Defense, cybersecurity issues, but then I'm working with water and wastewater issues. They're kind of totally different, but they also kind of go together. And then I'd say contribute. This is one thing that Bach always hit on, and it's made a big difference in everything that I've tried. There would be times where we would do a write-up, where we'd create some talking points, and I would call it good. Like I went through, I did a few drafts, and I was like, okay, maybe I bounced off a colleague. I think we're good. And I pass it back to Bach, and he always had something to say. There was always something wrong with it. Whether there's a grammatical error, whether we should change it like this, or maybe I change all those things and it's like, let's scratch that, let's change it like this. And just like driving me nuts. Like, I want to get it right, but this seems unnecessary. And I confronted him one time. I went to his office. I was like, okay, this is like, it's early. It's like 5 a.m. on a Saturday. I can't do this. I was doing this through the night. This is too much. And he was like, okay, in order to lead, you need to always contribute something. It doesn't mean just making stuff up. There's plenty of people that just fake it till you make it kind of mentality and will just say nonsense to make it be their contribution. But think about how you can meaningfully contribute to everything. And sometimes that is just a grammatical thing. Someone sends a paper to me, I write for a magazine, and they'll submit a paper and I'll say, okay, these are some things that we should change. In the past, I would have just looked at it like, looks pretty good, the story's pretty good. Maybe I'll just change those little things. But I've noticed over time, the more I've done that, people will come to me and say, okay, hey, what can I do different here? Or how can I look at this in a different way? And always having something to contribute there makes a huge difference, and they appreciate it. And you also take something from it. So it's really, really valuable. And also in the workforce, it's kind of cutthroat at times when you're, you're trying to get a job that you really, really want, and there's someone else that maybe they've got more qualifications than you. For me, when I got into rural water, I had no experience. I had the stuff that I did at the UIMF, and that was part of like my interview process. I went into that saying, okay, look, I led these clubs and we did a lot of cool stuff. Please hire me. I applied for a public relations job and I didn't get it. They ended up making me a office assistant. And I was a little bit bummed by that because I was like, okay, I think I got this in the bag. I don't know who else is going for this, but that's one of those things that you notice with school is you learn a lot, but you've got almost no experience to be able to do anything in the workforce. So that's where like these clubs and the volunteering and stuff will give you some of that experience that you can at least come to the table and say, hey, I've done something like this. I've helped with events and I've led these things. I've spoken in front of people. I know I could handle this job. Luckily enough, they hired someone for PR and she just really didn't like the job. And so she left to go make more money somewhere else. And I stepped in and said, okay, I know I already applied for this, but I think you should give me another shot. I can come up with a marketing plan. And at the time, I didn't know anything about marketing. I knew some PR stuff, but I didn't know a single thing. And I just went through and studied all I could to kind of figure out this is kind of what a marketing plan should look like. Proposed it, and they were like, okay, we'll give you a shot. Go for it. Let's go with your plan. And I'm still there now, so it worked out. And some of that stuff was scary for me. Like we report to a board of directors, and so I give reports to the board. And that, like at first, it was kind of intimidating because I had done some PR stuff before, but these guys like hold my job like a little bird in their hands. And at any moment, if I didn't explain this well enough, or I was also worried about What if I accidentally misled them and didn't actually tell the whole truth? And would that come back to me? Like, gotta be super clear and concise. But I found I learned a lot from that experience, just connecting with them. And again, that's something out of my comfort zone. Then I would say discover your why. A lot of people will go through school focusing on, I would say, the wrong thing. Like, what's your major? Which is great because that kind of encompasses everything you study, and it's a lot of money you're invested in that category. But like, why are you doing it? Getting the degree is great, but is there some motivation behind that that inspires you to get up in the morning? The same thing applies to being in the workforce. Is that what motivates you to live? For me, that's the positivity, my family. They're the reason I go to work and get to do things like this. But until you know what your why is or what motivates you, it's going to be really hard to really invest your time and energy into whether it's these clubs or even in the future with your job. And then I would say finding your voice. How do you tell a story? I kind of ordered these in terms of priority. I didn't number them because you could kind of mix them up as you want, but I put find your voice at the end on purpose and start on purpose in the beginning because I kind of initially when I jumped in, I felt like finding my voice was the most important thing. How can my unique perspective make a difference here? What I didn't know is that in order to have a voice in the first place, you need to go through all the other steps. You need to go to class, you need to volunteer, you need to chauffeur some people, head logistics. You need to do these things in order to understand how everything functions before people would even care about what your voice is. And that's the thing is that your voice does matter. It's important. And all of you guys have different perspectives that are valuable. But until you put the work in, no one cares. But once you do put that work in and you do volunteer and you do your stuff, they'll listen to you. And going back to not wanting to just brag about myself to ambassadors and say why we were so cool, they took that into consideration. When we went up to them and said, hey, these are the things that we do as a school. Okay, yeah. Oh yeah, you're a university, this is what you care about. And then we say, no, we have a student engaged learning model. We push all of this stuff. Our professor is in the background, but we're the ones coming up with the posters and the flyers and bringing people to events and handling logistics and leading it. And that makes a difference. They saw it differently. And I know that made a huge difference in our connection with them as well. Okay, so I wanted to open it up a little bit and kind of bounce some questions off of you guys, more new to me, but do you guys have any questions or things that maybe popped in your head or advice or, I don't know. Yeah. You good? Okay. I know I'm not a Secret Service agent like Tony, but
me a couple of maybe remarks. Yeah, I was really happy when Chris responded to my request whether he would like to come. Because now with Chris we had a quite a challenging time in order to get here. Why? Because he was a student with a full-time job, so he worked entire week, and only Saturdays we have was things to interact. And during the Saturdays I was going, would you like? No. Would you like? No. But no. What was again important about non-traditional students? If you are able to find some niche and which is fitting in your vision and ideas, no, then you again in the right track. So that's why Chris at a certain moment already was able to go in that direction. And you see what was what he did. Little by little, probably grasping from here, there, but no. What he did, again, it was fundamental. He was working together with Tony, helping with the Women of Mountains conference. But another thing, you see, next semester we'll start a class about the sustained mountain development. And part of it will be the observational international mountain day. So he laid here the tradition to celebrate the International Mountain Day, not as a one event in December. He did in September when they hosted Ambassador of Georgia. Dr. Butler brought him second time. Yeah. After that, you see Rotary in November. And in December was one more where hand and nose, was a highlight. The special guest came from Pakistan, she was again making presentation about Kalash people. So he did three things. He is modest. He is not telling, how it happened, but it was, chain of events. And now for us an experience during that class in next fall year, look at it already something which is done. By the way, the United Nations has more than 260 different dates international, but there is no yet good educational programs, classes, based on which students are able to work on them, to use as a curriculum. It goes as a campaign, done once, done. Yeah? We did it already 14 times. And once, this was again great contribution from his, you see? That's what I'm saying. In between Rotary, because he did something unbelievable. Yeah? Because Rotary existed before, but they were dormant, they didn't work. Revival, and now Rotary is active. Why? Thanks to the Rotarians and others. Now it's very active, and we will go to the commission status room and we'll work with the Rotarians and Rotaractors from Kyrgyzstan and other places. So again, thank you. And the last thing, yeah. So we have a situation where many of you will be speaking during parallel event. This gentleman went to the commission status room and he didn't have such a lady. They were just studying how to get there. They just went shake hands with dignitaries, but didn't have a chance to go on the podium. He had that photo as a general, but no, it is not. It's just fun. But they didn't have a chance to speak with the statements, with the official again ceremony, like it happened on the 20th and 40th. Yeah, that's why we have to say him such a huge thank you to him, also to Mumbat. But Moon, he now works, by the way, here in Salt Lake for the Rio Tinto. And Reagan, yeah, you saw that lady. She is probably maybe Carrie, whatever.
Yeah, she's done pretty.
And you see, guys, how that's powerful again, powerful model where the traditional students and non-traditional working together. How Tony was able to provide this mentorship in the moments where the mentor was a little bit too pushy, yeah? But no, when you have your own environment, your own group and working together on certain things where you could handle, but I'm helping you just to move in a certain direction, yeah? You always will be the winners. And that's why what we are hearing now, thanks to Chris, yeah? Thanks to Chris. And I'm really happy that those qualities were again provided for an opportunity to be successful on a state level. If you again look at the other options, maybe government office, whatever, we'll be glad to write for you another letter of recommendation. Yeah. Okay. Yes, sorry.
How exactly did you learn here, get introduced to the position, the opening at the Rural Water Association that you have now?
Okay, sorry, I might have not done that super clear. So, I was looking forward, by the end of my undergrad, I needed to do some sort of internship, and I wanted to do something congressional. So I ended up going there, and she still works with me today. She was just previously in that job. So she was managing calls, taking emails, that sort of thing. And so I was reaching out to any connection I could possibly find. And it was like, I mean, at this point, it's like my wife's childhood friend that they hadn't talked to. She hadn't talked to her in like 10 years. But I was like, anything, any job, any internship, I'll do anything. And she's like, we could give this a shot. I mean, it worked for me. And I think that's the other thing I would say is like the networking.
Is very important.
It's huge. It's huge because having the degree is great. Like you need that as a prerequisite to do anything, but you need to know somebody to kind of get that extra foot in the door. And like you guys together, I mean, I don't know what it looks like, how you guys are involved in the club or what classes you take together, but like stay in contact, even if it's just a little thing, like, you know, your favorite color is blue or whatever. Cool. You're in the same class, you like blue, whatever. But if you get along, take that into consideration because in the future, you never know where those paths are gonna cross again. I mean, I haven't been in the workforce that long, like, I don't know, 6 or so years since I graduated. But I've started to see, how valuable that is. And I kind of took that for granted a little bit. I didn't want to connect like that so much, kind of like keeping to myself a little bit. But you'd be surprised. There's like anytime Moonbot reached out to me, just pre-COVID, and he was looking at like changing, going a different direction from the Air Force. And it was like, I spent a lot of time with him and we're good friends. And we just connect every once in a while, and who knows, we may work together one day or whatever, but it's a really valuable relationship. But kind of back to that internship. So from there, I saw it kind of was like laid out perfectly. Rural Water was looking for somebody, as they're looking for a PR person and an assistant. And I just sort of thought I was qualified enough to just take that big job. I wasn't. But yeah, that's how I got to that point.
Thank you.
So you seem very, very busy. You're in the MBA program, you have your job, and then you have obviously a beautiful family that you share.
Thanks.
My question is, how do you kind of stay balanced or stay on top of like all those different responsibilities at the same time?
Good question. Sometimes it's a little bit of a struggle. Really, it comes down to like prioritizing what is urgent and what is not. There were things that I learned in UIMF. I preferred to work on graphical design type stuff and working on posters and things, but those are great, but that's kind of a last minute thing. There was a lot of other stuff that was really important. And so I would just get distracted constantly. And that kind of honed in for me, like, okay, this is clearly not a priority because it's not due for a while. This is something I need to focus on right now. And when you've got no time, I thought I was really busy in my undergrad because it was, going back and forth between school and work was exhausting. I didn't have any kids. I was married, but it's just like, I can't it's kind of the worst. I mean, it was great that it was paying for stuff and I was able to live, but kind of sucked. But I'm really grateful for it because the point I'm at now with 2 kids and doing an MBA and working full time, I didn't think that was previously possible, but it is if you just find the right time. And you also have to don't stretch yourself too thin. You still have to find time for yourself and to kind of relax and get in the zone and all that stuff. For me, my family is my most important thing and I spend all my time with them. But I still find time for myself I like to play hockey and soccer. I do that kind of as a stress relief. But my work schedule, because the position I have, I can be a little bit more flexible about today is the middle of a work day, but I can come and do this and that sort of thing. So that helps a little bit. But that foundation, what you're doing right now, is really, really important. Any other questions? Yeah.
You served a congressional internship.
Yes.
Was that a local congressional office or in DC?
So it was for Mia Love, but it was here in Utah. So it was in West Jordan.
For whom?
Mia Love.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
And how did your experiences, particularly your volunteer experiences at UVU, work into that congressional relationship?
So first of all, to get one in the first place, I didn't meet with her to get the job. I just met with an aide. But knowing what to say and how those interactions work that I learned from Bach and from meeting dignitaries and ambassadors played a huge role. The internship itself, I was kind of looking at it like this would maybe be my future. And from this, if I did well enough, I would just be an aide and I'd move from the internship into an aide. And there was a spot open. I didn't know that at the end of this, only a couple months later, she was going to lose re-election. So it wouldn't have been a long lasting job anyway. But it was something that I was still passionate about. As far as my involvement with the clubs, it's being okay with doing the little stuff. Like I mentioned, logistics or even being a chauffeur. All I did was terrible, crappy little interny things when I was with Mia Love, but I really loved it. I found value in it because of the experience I had with the clubs. I kind of took for granted in the beginning that chauffeur is just chauffeur, but it was a unique connection. I met an ambassador from a different country on the other side of the world. I just drove her, but we had a great conversation talking about family and values and things that we both cared about. It was a very unique experience. But I had to do that grunt little kind of crappy work to kind of have that experience. But it's like seeing that positive in everything you do, that there's something good you can take out of it, even if it's writing a simple paper. I feel like specifically in box classes, it was kind of a lot of information, and the tasks that I was required to do wasn't too exhaustive. I was researching some basic stuff, doing a little bit of write-ups, but I just didn't see initially how valuable that experience was. I was looking for the next big thing. I'm a student, I have a job. How do I work for Congress? But you gotta like take a breath, like, okay, that's cool. Well, all these other things are really, really important and contribute just as much as that guy that's the face on TV. I don't want to be that guy with the face. I like to be the guy in the back doing something, but the journey matters, I guess. I don't know. Kind of roundabout, sorry. Question.
Excuse me, we have just 1 minute left before the end of the class, and then we have other students coming, and therefore probably with your permission. We'll have the ceremony now, yeah? Traditional one. Netta, please.
And after you present this speech to you,
Awesome.
you're a little bit off, so you might have to bend down a bit.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for hearing me.
So with your permission, I'll stop recording, guys, yeah?